Alright, this problem says, Luisa and Rachel have some trading cards. The ratio of their cards is 4 to 1, equals number of cards Luisa has to number of cards Rachel will then have. If Luisa gives Rachel 6 cards, the ratio will be 2 to 1, equals number of cards Luisa will then have to number of cards Rachel will then have. How many cards does Luisa have? So to represent this problem, we're going to make a table of the first ratio, 4 to 1, which is the original number of cards Luisa and Rachel both have, while the second ratio is a scenario where Luisa gives Rachel 6 cards. Alright, and now we're going to use the circle to represent a certain number of cards, but also to represent our 4 to 1 ratio. Luisa will have red circles, while Rachel has a different color, so we know the difference between Luisa and Rachel's cards. Right, so we've modeled the first ratio. Luisa has 4 circles representing that, showing that she has 4 times as many cards as Rachel, as the ratio suggests. Now we're going to move on to the second sentence, where it says, if Luisa gives Rachel 6 cards, the ratio will be 2 to 1. Since we want to know the original number of cards Luisa has, this ratio, or the scenario, will be helpful in letting us figure out how many cards each circle represents. So now we have to set it up. If Luisa gives Rachel 6 cards, the ratio will be 2 to 1. And let's test it here. If Luisa gives one of her circles to Rachel, Rachel only has 2/3 as many cards as Luisa, not 1/2 as much as the ratio suggests, with Luisa having 2 times as many as Rachel. Since we can't do this, we can try finding an equivalent ratio. Instead of 4 to 1, we can make it 8 to 2 and give some to Rachel. Now, Luisa has 8 circles and Rachel has 2. This is still a 4 to 1 ratio, as 8 to 2 is the same as 4 to 1. Now, let's see. If Luisa gives 1 circle or a certain amount of cards to Rachel, Luisa has 7 and Rachel has 3. Rachel still doesn't have half as much as Luisa. If we do that, and even if we move them, it still doesn't work. So we can try finding another equivalent ratio. Let's try to make another 4 to 1 ratio. And now Luisa has 12 circles and Rachel has 3. We've tripled our original ratio of 4 to 1, but it's still equivalent. Now let's try giving Rachel some cards. Some circles that represent a certain number of cards, in fact. So if Luisa gives 1 to Rachel, Luisa now has 11 instead of 12, and Rachel now has 4. Still not 2 to 1, But if Luisa gives another to Rachel, Luisa has 10 circles and Rachel has 5. 10 is twice as much as 5. So now we've fully represented the scenario. Luisa has 2 times as many cards as Rachel. Therefore, their ratio is 2 to 1 in this scenario. Now, it also says, if Luisa gives Rachel 6 cards, the ratio will be 2 to 1. When representing this, we gave Rachel 2 circles. So that must mean these 2 circles right here represent 6 cards. It's very important, as to solve this problem, we need to know how many cards one circle represents. If 2 circles represent 6 cards, that means one circle must represent 3 cards. As this is an important finding, we'll write it down below the table. Each circle represents cards. All right, now we can figure out how many cards Luisa has. Remember, the second ratio is only a scenario. So that means originally Luisa still has 4 times as many as Rachel. So she still has all 12 circles. We know that each circle represents 3 cards. So that means Luisa must have 12 times 3 equals 36. Luisa has 36 cards, which is the answer to our question. Right, so there we have it.